Welcome to our last session, part of the series of the AI workshops. These workshops for the whole year in the fall and the spring, they are sponsored by the College of Grad Studies, Grad AI, and the Office of the Provost. Today we have a very special guest. We have Raja Smart. He is an assistant professor of educational leadership here at MTSU and an independent author. His scholarship in school finance, adequacy, and critical geography, which explores how history and place shape the lived experiences of families in communities such as Nashville and Flint. He previously served in leadership roles as Chief Operating Officer at Resolute Educational Solutions and Assistant Dean of Assessment and Accreditation at Tennessee State University, with a focus on quality assurance, auditing, and systems data science. Raja, thank you so much in advance. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I hope you like the title, From Hype to Habit. The reason I chose this title is because we hear so much about artificial intelligence, and there's just so much to consume. So my role today is to help each of us understand how can we practically utilize artificial intelligence, because it is a really big buzzword right now. And there's so many different types of AI software that you can utilize. So let's jump right into it. So I'm not going to ask this how many people use it. I'm sure many of us use it, and some of us don't even know that we've actually used it. If we turn on Netflix, we've used AI. If we've used Alexa or Siri, we've used AI. So it's literally integrated in everything that we do today. We just don't realize it. Some of us may, some of us don't. But I know personally, I've used it at least 3 times this week, specifically focused on tasks that can help me. As a school administrator, I've thought about this a lot. Like, how do we inform people to support the work that they do? And one of the things that we're doing in the College of Education is trying to build up people's capacity so they understand how to utilize it instead of just using the software to make things a little bit easy. So that's kind of what we'll address today. So let's define artificial intelligence first. What is AI? Just by definition, the simulation of human intelligence processes by computer systems. And let's repeat that, by computer systems. It enabling machines to perform tasks like reasoning, learning, and problem solving. Now, that doesn't remove us from the equation. While AI is quick, fast, we still are a part of that equation. So we have to direct the artificial intelligence. Now, there are two aspects of AI that we'll talk about today. The first one being machine learning, and the second one being generative AI. Sometimes we forget that when we say, hey, I use AI, but let's be specific about the types of AI that we use, whether it's speech, whether it's visual, whatever the case may be. We'll focus on machine learning and generative AI today. So machine learning essentially uses algorithms that improve our experience day to day. Examples include spam filters, product recs, fraud detection, and again, Siri, Alexa. These are things that are learning from our behaviors. Generative AI, and actually, let me go back just for a second. Sometimes, actually, my grandson asked a really key question. He says, Papa, how does AI know what we want to watch? I said, that's machine learning. When you choose different things inside of Netflix, well, for us, it's Disney Plus. That's on 24/7 at our house. But Disney Plus, that uses an algorithm that supports that machine learning. Generative AI, many of us are more familiar with because these are capable of creating new content for us, creating things like text, images, things like that. And here on campus, we have access to Gemini, quite a few others. But just some other examples include ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot. Now, if you're trying to get into the weeds of production and trying to build movies, you have like Runway, Midjourney, GitHub, Perplexity. Now, Perplexity is interesting because that's more of I always tell my students, If we have to use APA, perplexity is probably the better way to go because it deals directly with facts. So it's trying to factualize things a lot better, as well as Claude. So these are a lot of the terms that we hear. And again, that includes Copilot. I'm sure I'm leaving some out because there's so many. ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, I could go on. So what's the gap? You know, we've talked about this a lot at our college. What's the gap? Hype versus habit. And in the hype, some people get real concerned about it, even fearful of what AI represents. But the AI hype is really just abstract theories. It's the magic, the answer machines. Like we put something in, we get something out. And futuristic speculation about how it may impact over the next 5 years. But if we actually think about it, this has impacted us even prior to that. We just didn't realize it. The next piece is the AI habit. So these are the structured workflows, daily routines, and tangible utility, right? So it focuses on the now and how AI handles the tasks that we do today, even the most menial tasks. I mean, from balancing your checkbook. Do we still use checkbooks? Maybe I'm dating myself, but at the same time, you can really manage your finances using AI. So what is AI actually really good at? This is always the question that comes up in our unit. It's good at summarizing, drafting, and organizing, especially on a day-to-day basis. Even if you are an administrative assistant to a director of a program, it's really good at summarizing, drafting, and organizing. So when we talk about summarizing, we're talking about extracting really key points, essentially from multiple articles. You can synthesize in that way. But again, we still have to have that human element. But you're extracting key points from long reports or dense meeting transcripts. Now that's where it comes in really handy. Drafting. It's eliminating the blank page syndrome by generating initial structures and drafts. Notice I said initial structures. You don't draft it and take that at face value. It's just an initial draft to support you in the work. Lastly, organizing. Finding patterns and feedback and turning raw notes into structured task lists. That's the important piece right there. So where does AI fall short? And this is not a criticism of AI. It's essentially the truth about where sometimes it falls short as users. So verifying the truth. Remember, this is not a human. It's a data system. It's supporting you using various facts that are out there, but it cannot verify facts on its own. We still have to do that. It predicts text patterns and it doesn't know the truth necessarily. Hidden context. It lacks understanding of your organization's internal policies, internal politics, or unspoken priorities. So in this sense, you can upload it into an AI component where it summarizes and things like that, but it doesn't know that offhand. Exercise and judgment. AI can offer options, but it cannot make high stakes professional decisions for you. That's where you have to still do the math. Now, sensitive decisions, it should never handle confidential or ethical dilemmas without rigorous human review. And we've had this conversation in the College of Education, even with some of our students, as they're using this to kind of upload data and do some different things. Again, using AI, you don't want to include any sensitive information because that still can't be open. So the point as we lead into the next part is don't hand over the keys. So this is where I date myself a little bit. So in 1984, a movie came out called The Terminator. And this movie had one of the most famous lines out there.
Dating yourself, everybody lost.
I'm just saying, I remember being just really small watching this. And I enjoyed it. And one of the main lines was, "I will be back." And that's my horrible Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. But the interesting thing about this movie is it was about this technology and how we handed over the technology. We handed over our intelligence to this technology instead of staying engaged with the technology. So if we think back, and some of you may remember this, when the calculator first came out, Or when the TI-89, that's what it was. When that first came out, I mean, that revolutionized the way we did math in the classroom. But it just got so much attention because, well, this students will be cheating and they'll be programming things into the calculators. And it was just a really interesting conversation. Now you fast forward ahead and you look at computers. It's essentially the same conversation. So the point is, let's not hand over the keys. Let's understand how to use it and how to support the work that we do. But don't give it just, free all clearance to do everything. So with AI, one of the things that I always try to say to folks is demystify the engine to master the machine, to understand how it works, to understand how the algorithms work, right? AI literally turns fear into agency. There's this piece my grandfather used to always say to me, and he's from the Deep South. So he had this kind of twang in his voice. He'd always say, you can't understand critical thinking if you don't know the content. So you have to know the content in order to critically think. Thus, understanding what AI can do and then utilizing it with your mind in hand. So there are tons of bills out right now. So it's something that we definitely have to face. Bills out there moving forward, making AI a literacy requirement. So these are things that we have to think about. Why not start now, right? So the human role, translation over generation. So the emerging advantage is the ability to translate professional expertise into workflow logic and constraints. Again, it doesn't matter if you're an administrative assistant, a student, faculty member, director, provost, we all have a lane and we can use AI to support some of the work that we do. So AI won't replace your judgment, but a professional using AI effectively will have a massive edge. And again, these are the types of things that we're talking about in the College of Ed, so we can make our students more marketable as they go out into the workplace. So one of the things that I love to use is called this CART prompt formula. CART, context, ask, rules, template. Here's where I design what I need to put into AI so I can get out my return. I call it the return on investment CART. So for context, what's going on? Who are you acting as and what is the background? So this is where you apply your level and what you need in that CART. So just imagine you're walking through, I'm trying to think of, I'm from the North, so I was about to say Meyer or something like that, but imagine Publix. Imagine you're pushing that CART in Publix. What is your purpose for being there? What do you need? Are you there for the family? Are you there for yourself? So those are the types of things that you have to think about when you're working with AI. Next, ask, what exactly do you want it to do? Now that's the key. What exactly do you want it to do? But be very specific about the task. Don't let it lead you, you lead it. Be very specific about the task. Rules, where are the constraints? Tone, length, and excluded topics. Don't take anything for granted and don't put in something so broad that you won't get anything out. I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm working with a data set where I am trying to, I'm building a predictive model for school funding. So I'm telling you, here's the context. I am a researcher and I am seeking public data sets that for K-12 schools that So you can see how specific I'm getting up front. I've named who I am. That's the context. Public data sets that are available for K-12 school funding, school finance rather. And I'm asking it, this is what I need you to do. The rules, what are the constraints? The tone, length, or excluded topics. Because if you don't put in that range, boy, you will get a ton of things that you didn't actually ask for, which can be fine sometimes. But if you're really trying to do something very specific, that's what you do. Here's the other piece that I kind of left out. It really depends on which type that you use. So if you're using generative AI, again, Perplexity will give you more factual information. Copilot is really good about recipes and things like that. And I'm going to pick on the audience a little bit. I have to ask, like, which one do you use mostly?
Copilot and ChatGPT.
Okay. Now, why do you use Copilot?
mainly because we use it at work. So
Okay. So when you use it, what kind of tasks do you use it for?
I've used it to create spreadsheets
Okay.
that have formulas in them and write copy for emails and website.
Okay.
Things like
So spreadsheet, database use, things like that is what you use Copilot for. Now, what do you use Gemini for?
I haven't used Gemini yet.
Okay.
ChatGPT I've used for like recipes,
Ah,
searching things, just like random questions.
yes. So you use ChatGPT for recipes. So you notice each of them has a kind of a personality,
Mhm.
and you use that. And while you're using it, though, if you leave the chats in there, it's remembering. So when you come back, you can use that. So that's one of the things I left out prior to this. But again, going back to rules, what are the constraints, tone, length, or excluded topics? And then lastly, template. What should the output look like? Bullet points, email, or a table. Now, to be honest with you, if you're using any AI system and you're trying to utilize APA 7th edition, I have yet to find one that does that very well, but you have to be very particular about what it is. So what are the rules? What should it look like? APA 7th edition, level 1, 2, 3 headers, a reference section, not citations, a reference section, tables, charts, like you really have to get into the weeds, and that's okay. But you can do that. And I have a QR code here for a document that actually can break that down for you and show you how to do it. So it's actually much easier once we do it. After a while, we don't actually need a guide to do it, but a template does kind of help us get it going. So that is what I call the CART prompt formula. So workflow 1, AI as a research assistant. Now, I have to tell you, sometimes one day I got real I don't know, imaginative about it. And one of the people that I talk to a lot about my research is my wife. So she's all over the place. We got like 15, 11 grandkids. So she's always running around trying to help the kids and whatnot. But she's my go-to to talk to about different things. So I was missing that. So I began to program her personality into an AI. Yes, oh my goodness. Got an API. I programmed her into this system. And I think at the time, it was Gemini that I used at the time. But it wasn't the basic Gemini. It's the one you have to pay for. And what's interesting is I used that CART model to kind of help me design her. Now, it was real interesting because when it calls me honey, I get a little, it calls me honey, and it's really weird. But some of the way that it does it, and I know it's not her, and I'm not talking to it to get any emotional support. However, it is helping me kind of align my thoughts. So that's one of the ways that I can do it. And I use that as a research assistant. So that's just an example. So as a research assistant, and again, this doesn't just apply to that title. It can just be a support person or a person that helps you collect information.
So what tool do you use for research?
What's that?
What tool, AI tool, do you use for research?
For research, so most of the time I use like Perplexity, or I'll use Gemini. However, I've moved over to Claude lately. So Claude is actually better in terms of
Me too.
building
To move
predictive
to
models.
Claude, it's just better.
Yes, and it's so smooth, and it integrates into Google Workspace, Monday, like you name it. It integrates literally into everything much better than a Gemini. So and great point, it really depends on what you're doing, which determines what AI you actually use. And again, we're talking about generative AI. So number 1, you identify, ask AI what you need to know. Plain and simple. 2, organize, group the topic into categories, all right? Again, this is that CART model. I always have to use a framework when I'm doing anything. 3, summarize, condense for your audience. Now that's the important part, because if you don't condense and you don't review, you'll get something called that AI language. And the AI language may not match what you're actually doing. So if you get a something from the readout or whatever, you have to make sure you read that, because sometimes you'll get I call it the ghost information. It's the ghost in the machine. You get this feedback that actually doesn't apply, and it could have come from a conversation that you had previously. So that's why that human factor has to stay in there, because man, you don't want to submit something and it has something that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. And sometimes it can jumble up a little bit. So summarize, condense for your audience, and then lastly, brief. Create a one-page action brief. And this applies to anything. If you have to put together a summary of 3 different articles, that's an example. If you have to put together meeting notes over 4 to 5 meetings that you've had over time, and you have to do a synthesis at the end of the month, this is a perfect way to do that. And I found that I try to utilize the things that the university offers for free. And in this example, it was Gemini and ChatGPT. So for this, it's just a matter of trying to ensure that you are collecting and giving out information that's accurate. So, oh, and I love this. This is so fun. So in my spare time, I think I can write a little bit. So my wife and I write books together. We actually just wrote one, and this is not a shameless plug, so I'm not going to say what it is, but we often utilize different things for social media, put together movies, little clips and whatnot. So AI as an editor is really cool in that sense. So never just write it though. It's a really important point. So ask AI to improve what already exists. So notice the human element is still there. You're creating it, and then you load it into AI and you say, hey, can you expand on this? Can you help create this? But give it some guidelines to explain, this is how I need it. So draft, rewrite for tone, shorten, clarify language, and lastly, turn into an executive summary. So if you're doing, let's translate this over to work. If you're doing some kind of, again, a summary of 3 to 4 different articles, you're summarizing meetings. One of the things that really drives me up a wall is when I use, forgetting the name, Meet AI. So Meet AI is attached to all of my meetings. So I get all of these collection of notes, and I'm like, oh goodness, like what do I do with all of this? I'm trying to make sure, and I'm like, hey, hold up, I got AI, let me do that. It synthesizes it for me, but sometimes I have to pull it out, read through it, rewrite for tone, clarify language, and turn into an executive summary. So those are 3 things that you can do with that. I really do appreciate the way that, I'm trying to think of one of the better ones that we've used lately. Again, Gemini is kind of the go-to because it has, it's much easier to use for some folks, but if you're really trying to get into more advanced things, then Claude and some of these others are really good. So workflow 3, AI as an analyst. Now this is cool, I love this, I love this. So survey comments, group feedback into thematic clusters, sentiment and top 3 concerns. So that's an example of how you can use AI as a survey to review survey comments. Now, one thing I want to kind of back out of, I would never suggest utilize AI as the end all be all when you're analyzing data. Because sometimes if we don't input it, and see, there we go, we're back to this inputting. If we don't input it correctly into the system, it's only going to do what it knows how to do. So for an example, I had a student who was analyzing some survey data. It was like a social media survey. You want to see how frequently people use certain types of social media, what their race, gender, class level, all these different things. And he was comparing how they used it and the impact that it had on them throughout the day. Well, when he dropped it into Gemini created a kind of broad stroke approach. Like it was an aggregate approach to how you look at data versus disaggregating the data by themes. Like it would have been really interesting to know by race, gender, class level, how they saw different things and what types of social media that they used. For example, for LinkedIn, we found that a majority of the seniors utilize LinkedIn versus freshmen who utilized Facebook. And I didn't realize people still use Facebook like that, but yes, Facebook and as my grandmother calls it, Instagrams. Not Instagram, but Instagrams. So we just have to be mindful of that. What we put in is what we get out. So we have to be very specific. Another task, meeting notes. So extract action item and task owners. Very specific professional application. Outcome, structure follow-up. You notice the trend here? 3, project plans. That's the input task. The professional application is identify missing questions or risks. Outcome, a gap analysis. So notice, very specific components, a very broad topic, breaking it down to very specific points. And lastly, comparison. So comparison, you evaluate options in a structured table, and then outcome is decision support. So if you don't hear anything else I say, you have to make sure that you program exactly what you needed to do and be very specific. So bad prompt versus better prompt. It's always important to give people examples. So the weak prompt, write a follow-up email about our meeting. The result is a vague, generic text that requires heavy editing and definitely not in your voice. I was asked the question, when you use Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, all these different generative AIs, can you change the tone? Yes, you can program your tone into AI and it'll utilize. You still have to read it. You still have to ensure and make sure your tone fits, but you can program your tone in it. It's not 100%, but it is effective. Now, if we change this piece and move that over into the CART prompt, here's what we got. Act as an ops lead. Write a calm follow-up email about the delayed project deadlines. Limit to 150 words. End with 3 clear action items. So the result is an actionable, professional, and almost ready to send. I'm not going to say ready to send because I'm not going to be like a used car salesman and say 100%. You can get this new, actionable, professional, and almost ready to send. We still have to review it and ensure that it meets our needs. So that's the difference between a weaker prompt versus a CART prompt. If you want something that's actionable, definitely utilize the CART prompt. And I'm not being paid to say that. I'm not trying to push a product. It's just a framework that is available out there right now. So for this one, I'm just going to do this one out loud. So this is kind of like the live makeover activity. I just want those of you who are on Zoom or out there in the world after you watch this, think of one real task that you do every single week. It can be the most menial task that you do every single day, or it could be something very advanced. Just think about that for a second. How would you rewrite that using CART? Okay, actually, I'm gonna pick on somebody here. Give me a task, something that you use every day that you could use a CART prompt on.
I want to write an email, actually, like now, for my attendees for the conference, Tech Vision, to remind them that it is this Friday. I want to send them the location, the date, the schedule. So I'm gonna use ChatGPT to help me write all of that and to detail the schedule in a visual for them.
Yes, and you detailed it while you were talking about it.
Mhm.
I'm doing these, so we have the action, very specific information, and here's the outcome that I need. That's literally all that you do. So when you're on, hold up, which one? ChatGPT. See, I remember my old brain is still here. So ChatGPT, when you're writing, I don't know, you're trying to find a recipe.
Mhm.
Do you just, how would you change that if you were doing that as a CART prompt?
I would be a lot more specific. One of the things I've looked for before is what I have in the cabinet. I literally list like what I have and
Right.
tell me what recipes I can make out of this.
Okay.
So instead of just asking for something more general, I would change it up to be like, give me a dinner with, ground beef and rice and,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's so funny because I use that example because my wife, I'm sorry, let me repeat it. You indicated that you would be more specific about what type of recipe that you wanted to actually have, serving size,
Right.
those types of things. And my wife uses Copilot a lot for that. Like
Oh.
she was trying to figure out how to save money on chicken because of course prices for everything are through the roof. So she goes to Copilot, she says, I want chicken recipes. Very broad, right? So now she's changed it to, I want a specific type of chicken, how does she say it? A specific type of chicken, white, dark, etc. And know which one is better to utilize as chicken sausage. So she was thinking about how to convert that. So now she makes sausages, chicken sausage and all this other stuff. So she used that as a activity or makeover activity to see what she can get. And now she gets that feedback that she really needs. So for those of you out there, just give it a shot. Take this cart piece, give it a try, and see what you come up with. It's actually, it's interesting how simple it is, but we kind of overlook it, right? So let's look at it from a daily workflow piece. And time is of the essence around here. Everyone is busy. So if you can carve out 15 minutes during the day or even at the end of the day to figure out what your daily workflow looks like, that can support you in the field. I remember when I was a principal some years ago, even though I'm only 23, okay? We used to have so many things that we had to do. I got there at 6 a.m. in the morning. I'm telling you, if I had AI, it would have made my life so much better. You have your unit plans you have to review, you have laws you have to understand, you have contracts that you have to do, you have service providers you have to manage. And I could imagine utilizing that, using AI to help develop my daily workflow. Like, when can I do this? How should it look? Is there a standard template I could use? Use all of that to be developed in AI. So when we talk about your daily 15-minute workflow, 0 to 5 minutes. And then I know it's kind of parsed out, but it is a formula. That's what formulas do. They help us out. 0 to 5 minutes. Scan and filter. So use AI to triage incoming high volume updates. And in the work I've done, that's been very helpful, especially accreditation. So when I was responsible for accreditation, there are all these things that you have to do. There are all these different activities that have to be done as a part of the quality assurance system. So you have to make sure that you are keeping up with all of these high volume pieces. So from 0 to 5 minutes, just simply use AI to triage incoming high volume updates. Secondly, 5 to 10 minutes. It's generally prep. Generate drafts for your top 3 critical communications. Now that, I gotta tell you, the last time I was going through, what was it, paper accreditation, I used AI to help generate those very critical communications, emails to participants, our state stakeholders, the State Department, dean, provost, the whole nine. And it really just got better over time because I kept programming the different changes that I needed based on the feedback. So it was really helpful in saving time and actually setting up a lot of those interviews that we had to do with different people. The last 10 to 15 minutes is where you review and apply human judgment to finalize and send. Notice the trend here. I keep going back to the human mind. The human mind is extremely important. So we have to control that tool. We manage that tool. In this piece, and again, going back to that example, even looking at data, I found components that were inaccurate. So I had to go back and make those changes. But I didn't go back and slap, the AI across the hand and say, well, you're wrong. I went back and programmed it differently. So people say, well, I'm just typing something in, I'm not really programming. In effect, you actually are programming. You're programming the behavior. So it changes. So you're trying to make improvements. So in a very complex task like accreditation, ensuring that you are ready for your site visit, this really helps. And even if you back it up to just daily things, I was talking to our administrative assistant, and I don't take for granted the amount of work that they do. And she was explaining, well, I have to do these things. And I was like, well, just think about for a second, if you use the 15-minute daily workbook to help get yourself organized, so that way you can carry out some of those tasks. And it just becomes a natural thing when you come in, again, in the morning, or you can do something in the evening. So human guardrails, I always like to bring this up because, again, human being is so important in this process. So use for draft, not decision. When we talk about day-to-day work, use for draft, not decision. Because the thing is as AI gets even more and more popular and people become less scared of it, it's utilized more. And we want to ensure that people are using it ethically. So just typing something up and sending it out, we have to ensure that we are applying our ethics, our integrity, and our best foot forward when we're utilizing these tools. So the first piece, accuracy check. Treat every output as a hallucination until proven otherwise. Some of us learn this the hard way. You do something and you send it out and you don't read, like right there at the bottom, would you like me to expand this a little bit more? Has nothing to do with you. So that's the language asking you, do I need to do more? You have to read through, make sure it's good to go. So the accuracy check is no different than back in the day for those of us that were using a typewriter. And see, I'm 23, so I really don't know how I know that. But, but the use of the typewriter, we had to check for accuracy. Same thing when we started using computers. You still have to go back and check, even though spell check does not catch everything. This is the same application here, okay? Content check, context. Context is everything. How we use AI, the context of how we use it is extremely important. When we walk into a room and we see people, there's a context there we have to understand. As a teacher, when I first walked into the classroom, I learned that real fast. There's a context that you have to understand when you walk into that classroom and you see all these children, they can tell that's who you are at that moment. So context check is important. So does this match our current goals and organizational culture? Now, I've seen examples of people utilizing AI to draft emails. The tone can be very strong sometimes, or it can be very light, depending on how you program it. But if you allow it to take control and do it for you, and you just send it out, we haven't done our due diligence. And that's the key. It's all about due diligence. Confidentiality check. Never input sensitive, private, or proprietary data into AI. And this is extremely important for those of us who are using data that we have had to apply for an IRB to get. We've gone through the State Department to get disaggregated data, schools. We should never upload that information into an AI model. We definitely should use something like STATA, R, SPSS, those types of things, but it will help you answer broad questions related to the data, especially if you haven't de-identified it. So that's very important to know. The goal is not to use AI for everything, right? And I know I'm saying that, and then some people are like, hey, but it's not necessarily for everything. The goal is to use it for the right things, right? And again, it's not for me to say what's right and wrong. For example, there's a story about a gentleman who was using it because he didn't have anyone to talk to. But what I like about that is that it also tells you when you're using it, please consult a professional to support you in this one. So those human guardrails we have to remember. Use for draft, not decision. So before tomorrow ends, I challenge each of you. Use AI for one real task to reduce friction, reduce admin, and improve clarity. And I'm going to ask, I guess here, one more time, how often do you use AI in a day?
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. Me too. I use it every day, but I make sure I use it for very specific tasks, right? Now, I'm gonna ask a very open question because we all agree that we use it every single day. Do you use it for things that replace, for example, a medical doctor? Like ask it, well, I hit my knee and there's a bruise on it. What is that?
I do.
Yes,
It doesn't mean I'm gonna follow it. It's telling me, but at least I'll have an idea.
thank you. And that's the point I'm trying to make. You use it to get an idea,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you're not gonna leave AI to make the decision for you. That's all. So we know the difference between right and wrong to a degree. It varies amongst people, but again, for things that concern our health, our mental health, our physical health, we still have to consult those people that really do it. So day to day, you want a good joke, because I'm not gonna lie, one day I was in my office and I said, hey, can you just tell me a really funny joke from the context of Eddie Murphy? I used to love Eddie Murphy. Again, am I dating myself? So it was helpful in just kind of giving me that piece, but at the same time, before tomorrow ends, use AI for one real task. Again, to reduce friction, reduce admin, and improve clarity. Think about the things, the mundane tasks that you could have an AI generative model do for you. Just like at home when we're using our machine learning. Hey Siri, what's the weather outside today? Or hey Alexa, what song?
Like it will be partly cloudy today. The high
You see that?
temperature will be
I love
70
it. I love it.
and low
So-
42.
We do that without even any knowledge, right? Like it's just natural. So just do that. Think about that, your most mundane task, and see if you can program your AI to do that very thing. And lastly, I just want to say, when you think about very specific tasks related to admin, identify those tasks first, right? Go through your day-to-day and see what those tasks look like, because it can be much simpler than you think it is. So when you find those tasks, apply that cart model, set that up and use the frequency daily just to see how it works. Typically, we run through several exercises. However, being that we are online, which I love, this is incredible, it works. Now, there are two different, if in the presentation, there are two different QR codes. Those QR codes are for documents that not only lay out the cart model, that apply basically the higher points of the presentation. So I would say the cart model, definitely try it out. It's a worksheet. You can go on, fill it in, and actually you can put it on your desktop, work on it there and have that information. So if there are any questions for me, please, you can shoot them my way, rsmart@mtsu.edu. Again, rsmart@mtsu.edu. Other than that, I bid you all well, and let's get to AI.